Brand new to CS5, Puppet Warp represents a new frontier of technology that can be used to transform photographic subjects in a very realistic manner. We'll begin this lesson with the image Puppet Warp 01 on screen. You can find that inside your Chapter 6 folder. Now I've got a shot here of tennis player Scoville Jenkins about to serve, and notice that he is silhouetted against a transparent layer. You can see that here in the layer menu if I turn off the bottom layer. Using an image layer is going to be by far the fastest and easiest way to use Puppet Warp. And let's go up to the Edit menu and choose Puppet Warp. Now we've got this mesh here, and that's giving you an idea of the amount of control we're going to be able to have on this selection. I'm going to turn it off so that you can really see what's going on here. Now before you can do anything with Puppet Warp, you have to place pins on your object. I'm going to place some pins here at various joints on this player's body, in the shoulders and in the hips here. Now pins can serve two functions. A pin can allow you to move a part of the subject, in this case a body part, if it's selected. And this black circle that's here in the last pin I clicked on indicates that it is selected. Now when you have pins that are not selected, those serve as anchor points and restrict movements here. So I'm going to go and select this pin on the shoulder, and I'm going to hold down the Option key on a Mac. On Windows that would be the Alt key, and notice that my icon here turns into a rotate symbol. Now you don't place the cursor directly over the pin, that'll give you this cut icon, but if we move it off of the pin, you get a rotate icon, and what we're going to do is rotate along the axis of his shoulder. You simply click, and by dragging to the left, I can rotate his shoulder. Pretty cool, huh? Notice also that his head and neck are rotating a bit as well, and that's because the next closest pin to the active pin is on his opposite shoulder. So it is that area in between the two pins that is going to see the bulk of the rotation here. These are just fantastic results here, and this is something that you just could not do in Photoshop until CS5. And let's see what we can do here. We're going to select another point. Let's select the wrist. We'll rotate that. So simply hold down the Option key on a Mac, Alt key on Windows. We'll rotate just a little bit in with the wrist just to change the racket angle. You can also select multiple points here. If I shift click, I can select this pin at the elbow in addition to that on the wrist, and I can select here at the shoulder. Now with these three pins selected, I can move. If I hover over any pin, you can see I've got my move icon here, and I can drag these as a unit up or down. Of course, if you go too far, then you're just doing things that simply aren't possible with the human body. So let's undo that with Command Z on a Mac, Control Z if you're on Windows. Now you don't have to use the mouse to move these points. You can use the up, down, left, and right arrow keys on the keyboard, and this will give you a very high degree of precision. You can simply move in any direction in extremely small increments. So if I press up once, I can move up in one point. I can move to the left, I can move to the right, simply depending on which arrow key I press. So you've got a lot of options available here for making very, very realistic movements. Let me just make a couple more adjustments here just so we can see a nice little before and after. We'll move this up as a unit a little bit, put him just over there, and maybe what I'll do, I'm going to click on the shoulder again to isolate it, hold down the Option key, and just get a little bit more of a stretch like that. Okay, I'm going to commit to this by pressing the Enter key, and here's where we started. And here's where we ended up. And very, very believable results. So put some time in with Puppet Warp, and we get very, very believable results. I want to demo Puppet Warp on a second image to give you a bit more of a complex example of how you would go about achieving realistic results. Let's go back to our Chapter 6 folder and open the file Puppet Warp 02. With this image, you'll notice that we have just a single background layer. Our statue has not been cut out here, so we're going to have to add a couple of steps. What I want you to do is click on the Channels panel, go down to the bottom and you'll notice that I've created an Alpha 1 channel for you. That's actually a selection of the statue. So I want you to command click on the alpha channel. That would be control click if you're on Windows. And that will automatically load that channel as a selection. And let's go back to the layers panel now. And this is what we want to do. We're going to just rotate the head of this statue a bit. But if we move any part of this statue, keep in mind we're going to leave a hole behind it. And here's a great technique you'll find useful for dealing with this type of situation. With this selection active, what we're going to do is make a new layer via copy. So the shortcut for that is Command J on a Mac, Control J on Windows. So now we've got layer 1 over top of our background that's nicely silhouetted here. Now what we want to do is command click on layer 1 so that we reactivate this selection. That would be control click if you're on Windows. Now we want to click on the background layer to activate it, and we're going to press Shift F5 to bring up our Edit Fill command, and we're going to select Content Aware. Notice now if I turn this top layer off, you can see that we've replaced the statue on the background layer with a Content Aware fill. Now obviously this fill has some issues, but for our purposes it's going to do just fine. So here's what we're going to do. We'll activate our top layer here. We'll select it, turn it back on. We can deselect with Command D on a Mac, Control D on Windows. And now with this top layer selected, we're going to go back up to Edit and choose Puppet Warp. We are going to place a pin here. We'll place one down at the neck, and we're just going to place pins at various points in the body so that we restrict our movements as much as possible to just the head. Now if I click here to activate this pin on the head, I can simply drag it. I can drag it over here to the left. I can straighten it a bit. Of course I could stretch it up if I wanted to, or squash it down. I'm going to leave it roughly at the same height. I just want to move it over to the left a bit. Of course, we can see now through to this background area that had our initial Content Aware fill that actually leaves a lot to be desired. But we can fix that in one fell swoop. I'm going to press the Enter key to commit to that change. And now in my Layers panel, I'm going to activate the background layer, highlight it so it's blue. And I'm simply going to choose the Lasso tool. L is the shortcut. This is the freeform lasso. You could use any tool you want to make a selection. I find this is probably about the fastest way to do it. And simply draw a selection around that area on the background. Even though we're looking at our top layer, layer 1, we are actually selecting the background layer because it is active, it is highlighted in blue. And we're simply going to use another Content Aware fill. Shift F5, Content Aware, and there we go. We fixed the background so that it's a nice seamless blend now with our new position of the head. You can close both of these images without saving them, and we'll move on to the next lesson.